Everybody talks about originality like it's just so sacred. But let's be honest, every great designer steals. You clicked on this link because you know you've done it too. In this episode of the Angry Designer podcast, powered by Wix Studio, we're calling out the myth of originality and showing you why stealing is actually part of the creative process. From Taylor Swift to Saul Bass, from AI to your current project, we're breaking down the fine line between copying, learning, and theft. But here's the catch. There's a code to creative theft, and most designers are breaking it without even realizing it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's go! All right.
Woo-hoo!
Okay, buddy, look
Yes.
what we're drinking today.
Loved it.
Do you? Because what I got looks like a freaking kid's drink. Check this out. It's a Dino Sour. I'm drinking a sour beer called Dino Sour.
Oh, and I'm drinking a triple IPA from Flying Monkey.
But look at
Wow.
how creative that
Yes,
that
with
looks.
the crazy eyes.
Look
That's
at that.
Just killer.
We've had quite a music adventure right
We
now, haven't we?
have, yes.
Yeah, we're talking about Rush, talking
Yep.
about bands, talking about copying.
Yeah.
Speaking of, so, Rosie, my daughter, as you know, she's a Taylor Swift fan.
Oh, she's a Swiftie.
Well, she's only 9 years old, so of course she's a fucking Swiftie.
Yeah.
And
that
let's
makes
not
sense.
even talk about the inappropriate music that Taylor's now speaking in her. Just like, whoa, I'm torn. Do I do this or not? But so her new album dropped like a week ago.
Right.
Right. And again, she's obviously pretty popular, but
Mhm.
people are going after her right now.
No, why?
Already, because she's got a song on there that they're saying that she ripped off the Jackson 5 song.
Oh.
Yes, right? Which is interesting. I heard the song,
Mhm.
okay, and I was like, okay, does it sound like the Jackson 5 song?
Mhm.
And okay, no.
Oh, it
in
does.
my opinion,
Okay.
I don't see a direct, it's not like a sample. It's not like they sampled that shit,
Okay.
right? And it's
Yeah.
just like, oh, well, come on, that sounds like,
Yeah.
Michael Jackson's about to start dancing. But there was something about it that had that same poppy vibe
Yeah.
feel.
Right.
And so it's like, if you really want to dig, I can see how people would think that that's a ripoff.
Mhm.
But to me, it's not even a ripoff. It's more like a remix. It's
Right.
and not even a remix in music terms.
Right.
Because music terms remix actually means something else. But, this kind of goes back to what I kind of wanted to talk about today.
Mhm.
Because again, it's like, we all, start by, an influence, okay, of a sort.
Right.
And whether that influence, is it inspires you or whether you're outright copying it, the reality is, if you really want to get critical, designers all start by stealing shit. Okay. And we steal layouts, we steal designs. That sounds harsh.
Yep.
But, I this past weekend, I was going through my old portfolio with my daughter and stuff, right?
Wow.
And I was like, oh, wow, look at this. I remember, I used to love rave posters, rave cards, rave flyers. I used to collect them.
Yes.
And my early shit was very heavily rave flyer influence. Copied, stolen, whatever, right? But, it was kind of like starting to get down that road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like at the record? Like
no, like, but in school, I remember an artist. He was called Douglas Frazier, and I thought he was really, really cool. He did these. That's when I wanted to be an illustrator.
Yeah.
So I saw his style. His style was this very, and you probably remember it. It's very thick black lines, super, and but
it's still hot now.
But it was like you paint a board with gesso.
Yes.
So it had ridges, and you would paint over that, and I just loved that style. So I did that for like a whole year.
Right. And
Just
again,
loving that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, it's like, but there's a fine line.
Mhm.
And I guess that's the issue, right? Because again, it's like, there's a lot of guilt. So I hired lots of people over the past, 27 years.
Mhm.
I would always encourage, whoever I would always buy design annuals. I love my magazines, right? I would spend hours, in chapters in Indigo early days.
Communications arts.
So communication arts
Yes.
and to get all these ideas.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then I would pass them forward. I would have designers who were so reluctant to kind of pull from anything like this. They didn't want to go. They were scared. They were like, oh, I don't want to copy anything, and I'm scared to steal. And I'm just like, you're focusing too much on trying to be original.
Yes.
And they had this guilt inside of them, right? Which is kind of silly, because the reality is by studying and copying and learning these styles, that's how you get better.
Yes. Yes. You absolutely learn that way. And I always found that I would try to copy.
Yeah.
But I couldn't understand it. I didn't know where this artist was coming from.
Yeah.
So I would end up falling, but also my, kind of creating something else.
Yeah, well,
that seemed to kind of work, but it wasn't what I was trying to do.
But that's true creativity.
This is kind of what I thought. It's just like,
it is.
By my limited skill set, I could only go so far.
Well, and I mean, okay, I think you're being hard on yourself.
Well, no, this is early on.
Okay.
And even now.
But see, it was... But creativity is like influence,
yes,
or copying, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, that's
plus, the context that you want to use that in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you're looking at a print, layout, and you kind of then all of a sudden transfer it online,
right?
Okay, and then of course, so you have your influence, plus you have what the context is, and then you add your own style to it, your own spin. Where in your case, what you just described as your limited capabilities.
Yes, exactly.
But that's how you didn't actually rip something off.
Right.
You copied it. But for the right reason. Because again, true originality doesn't fucking exist.
No,
all creativity is basically influence plus the context you're working in with your own style and spin to it, right?
Yes.
Paul Rand even, he was, many times he was like, don't try to fucking be original. Just try to be good. Okay? But being good involves, the need to start fucking copying. You need to pull your influences from people, because by pulling those influences, this is how you start training your brain.
Yeah.
You start doing the muscle memory, right? You start recognizing patterns.
Right.
Okay. You start understanding, like, I love those videos online that it's like, hey, are you curious on how much space you should put between your logo mark and your word, the company name? Sure. Just double up the company name and spread it out like this, and you're done.
It's mathematical.
It's like, yeah. Creativity is mathematical. Graphic design is just another math lesson.
Just math, people.
I get it. They're trying to help. But the reality is, by copying and understanding those patterns on a regular basis, you can start training your eye to understand what that spacing means.
Yeah.
That's something that I think people don't understand, because then, that takes it to a whole new level, right? Because then in that case, you're not really copying to steal an idea. You're copying to understand how they got there.
Exactly.
And all design works like that. Grids are like freaking, you could almost argue that design principles on a whole are based on just this. They're there so you can copy them, study them, steal them if you have to.
Yeah.
You'll learn your grids through this.
Yeah. Somebody else has done the legwork with stuff like that. So if you used what that person and kind of, copped what they were doing, you'll figure it out. You know what I mean?
No matter how far back in history you go, okay, every style, every design is basically carried forward, and improved.
Yep.
Okay, and this is how you do, and improved, remixed, made your own, made to suit the medium, the context, whatever it is that you're doing. I think if you're just copying the steel, okay, you're ultimately just focused on that end result.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not worried about how they got to it.
Yeah.
You are literally turning something out on a freaking service, on a platform, just quickly, right? You're literally ripping something off just to that end result. Okay.
Yeah.
You're focused, not on the learning, just on the doing part and the delivering part. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, so it's kind of like you're tracing something on paper, and all you're doing is you're tracing. You don't care how they got to it. You're just tracing it. You're putting your name on it, right? You got the shape, it looks the same, but you don't understand how they got there, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't need to.
Yeah.
I'm just going to rip this shit off and sell it to somebody else and
Yeah.
put a different name on it.
Yeah.
And let's face it, that's what so much of that shit online is.
Oh my God, that pizza slice logo.
Oh my God.
How many times have you seen that?
Oh, I think
Some people just don't even try.
I don't know,
Like,
right?
it's sad.
They
Like,
don't even try.
Jesus.
Poor Alan.
I
man.
know, poor
Feel
Alan.
bad
Like,
on that one.
and that guy worked really fucking hard on that. And I get seeing it because
Yeah.
it's fucking awesome. Like,
Right,
it's
yeah.
so good. And I can see why people will be like, my client's coming at me. I'm only getting $100 for this.
Yeah.
I'll just use that.
But you know what's funny? That $100 should have always gone to Alan right
Yeah,
from the
it should have. Yeah.
What is that pizza owner guy? The 6th or 7th one who got that logo
Yeah.
probably feels like he got shammed.
Exactly. He's probably looking through a magazine like, what the hell?
But okay, he goes
That's
online
my logo.
to Alan's website and he's like, Alan Peters stole my logo for fuck's sake. Brings up all the pizza posse up there to rough up poor Alan.
They copied me, he would say.
But I mean, that's the bad copying.
Yes.
Okay. Where, the other side, true designers, they don't copy to steal. They copy to understand, which is what we're always telling people to do.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't just want to recreate something to make it look good. You want to dissect it to try to understand the thought behind it, the understanding and the relationship between the spacing, the size, the proportions of everything. There's a reason why, right? And this is how real designers train their eye. They train their mind. They kind of start developing the muscle memory to kind of be able to replicate that look. That's where, when people say there's a design intuition, well, that doesn't come just from, starting, fresh in college.
Yeah, you don't get that right. You're not born with that.
Hey, that doesn't happen. Paul Rand at 5 years old, okay? Walking around. Wow, his crayon sketches are remarkable.
Or Vignelli. I just think I'm going to build a chair.
Yeah, right. But it's true. You're trying to study, the decisions, why they made the decisions they did to lay things out, right? The hierarchy behind it,
right?
And this is, the composition, the contrast, like everything that we just talked about before. Right. This way, it's a different kind of copying.
Yes.
Okay. Like I don't even consider it copying. To me, it'd be more imitation.
It's imitation, right? Yeah.
Which is a form of flattery.
It is, yes, the most sincerest form of flattery. Yes.
That's nice. That sounds so special. Right? But it's true, right? So when you're trying to imitate, you're not necessarily trying to deceive.
Right.
Okay. And that's a big thing, right? But in this case, you're trying to learn how to replicate that same, not necessarily that same mark, okay, but that energy the mark carries, the space, the vibe, the feel.
That's
right?
it. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's what people need to understand, right?
And now, a word from our sponsor.
All right, designers, let's cut the bull. How many times have you had a killer website design only to watch it fall apart because of code or developer telling you no? Or maybe you've held back from web design altogether thinking it's just too complicated and too technical or totally out of your wheelhouse. Either way, it's time for a change. Wix Studio is designed for designers, removing the barriers that limits your designs. Whether you're tired of developers watering down your ideas or too intimidated by the technical side of web, Wix Studio puts the creative power back in your hands. No code required. With a drag and drop interface that feels designer intuitive, plus no code animations and even AI powered tools, you can create fully custom websites that match your vision. Every pixel, every detail. And if you're worried about the learning curve, don't be. Wix Studio is designed to feel as intuitive as your favorite design tools. Some designers here even say more so. That means you can jump right in and focus on what you do best, designing badass, brand-aligned websites that'll take your business to the next level. So whether you've had enough of developers holding you back or you're ready to finally step into web design, check out wixstudio.com and take control. That's wixstudio.com. Go and take back web design for graphic designers.
In this situation, when you're trying to imitate something, you're not necessarily imitating it, logo for logo.
Right.
You are looking at a logo and you're like, wow, that looks great. And you take that and put it online for something else.
Right.
Okay. You try to create I don't even know, like an infographic based on a certain style or intensity of logo, right? You see a layout maybe in a PowerPoint somewhere or on the web somewhere, and you're like, you know what? This would look fantastic on a PowerPoint.
Exactly.
Right. So you're actually, but the thing is, you're not just copying it.
Yeah.
Because you can't copy that web page directly on that PowerPoint.
You're translating it to another medium.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
So, and again, this happens. Web layouts, dude.
Yeah.
I think this is why for me early on in our Z Factor career, it was so easy for us to pick up web. Okay. Because I was back then I wasn't into logos. I was into layouts. I loved layouts, right?
Interesting.
I would, again, go spend hours at Chapters and Indigos flipping through the surf magazines, the skate magazines, the car magazines, the design magazines, right? Yeah. And although I loved looking at the stuff in the magazines, ultimately,
the layout of the magazine itself.
Skateboard magazines were pretty fucking cool, right?
Yes.
And so for me to take that and translate it online, it just felt so natural.
Yes.
Right? Because I knew this is where the world was going.
Right.
And so, we had, I can honestly say we had a leg up on anybody else around, because at that time, you either had print people or you had programmers who were building websites.
Right.
But there was nobody in between like where we were. Right. And this is why in a short amount of time, we excelled a lot in that space.
Yes,
I like that. Yeah. So again, I think the fear isn't necessarily to copy for the sake of copying, okay? Or imitating. I think it's just, people worry about staying that way.
Right.
Okay. And then staying as a carbon copy of it, right? Because I constantly get people asking me, is it better to be able to replicate all these different styles, or should I, look for a style all on my own? And I would always tell people that there's a huge advantage for them to learn how to be
everything.
To be like a chameleon.
Yeah, right.
Right, because again, not every client is going to want, that one look.
Yeah.
If you study, Swiss modernism, which I love, that's not going to be for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And there's you're only doing yourself a disservice in that case if you're just studying one look
thing
only, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm a Bauhaus guy and I'll never, ever diverge from that.
It's true, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah.
It's not to say that people won't come to you.
Yeah, you get that. Yeah, but it's very, very selective and very.
And it takes a while. Like, it took a long time so now we're known for a look, right?
Definitely.
We are. It didn't start. It's not like I seek that look.
Yeah. I'll bet that portfolio that you were looking at didn't have any of
big
what you have now.
No, not at all, right?
And the slash of red. Well, it might have had that.
Always had the red, dude. Always had the red.
Okay, I figured that.
No, but it's true. I think going about it and trying to get that early style out, first and foremost, and focus on that.
Yeah.
That's the wrong intent. It's the wrong chase. Okay. Especially if you don't have everything else in order, right? Because you don't necessarily develop your own style, by looking at 100 different styles and be like, I'm going to mix this and this and this, and this is going to be my style.
That's what it's going to be.
That's not how it works.
No.
You have to earn that shit.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Aaron Draplin, Lincoln Design, right? They didn't just wake up and decide, I'm going to be all skulls and imitations, or I'm going to be, big geometric shapes
big
with
bold colors. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They earned that
They did. They worked and they put in the time.
That's right.
In order to get that style of theirs.
Years of consistently doing the same look over and over and then refining it,
Yes.
It doesn't happen overnight.
No.
So it's the wrong chase when people think that they can I'm just going to work on developing my own style. Because that shit's, that comes over time. It's not born.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even when you look at like the shit that Saul Bass was doing, okay? His stuff, in the end, he had a very distinct look.
Yes.
But if you take a step back, you can see.
Yeah. The earlier stuff.
He was imitating, right?
Yes.
Bauhaus.
Yeah.
He was imitating some of the Swiss modern movement. A lot of the constructivism, I think, was his stuff. Paula Scher.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Very awesome. Her, her early typographic posters. Okay. Very cool. That was very much what she became known for.
Yeah.
But you can clearly see a line between that and her imitating maybe earlier on, or her being influenced early on from the Russian propaganda posters.
Yes.
No shame in it.
Yep.
She still Paul Scher, and I don't think anybody's pointed their finger at her and said she stole, this design, this layout. It was all influenced.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's nothing wrong with it, and this we know. I think it all goes wrong when basically they're trying to copy the look without grasping the why they got there, right? And then again, this kind of goes back to this whole the lazy designer. Okay. And seriously, it's the lazy designer who's really more focused on that end product and I just want to replicate it. I don't care about the why.
Yeah.
I don't care about the depth.
Yeah.
I just like the way it looks.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to mimic that look on this project and copy it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the problem. And it's that kind of ruins it for everybody else.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
And it's not just the one, it doesn't just be the designer. I mean, agencies do it. I mean, customers do it.
Yeah, right.
How many customers, I'm sure everybody has had a customer who's said, I want it to look like Apple. And then, of course, it's like, okay, are you sure you want?
Yes.
I love everything about Apple.
Love it.
I go to their website. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you give them their product on a sea of white.
Yeah, and they're like, what is this?
I didn't pay for all this white space. What? This isn't Apple. And it's just like, it is Apple. Right? What about all of our features and how people going to know about what our product does? And it's just like, Apple doesn't talk about
they
that
don't
shit.
say that stuff.
It's and again, so they a lot of other factors in play here, of course, right? They had years of branding and the way they do things really messes them up. And people can't comprehend that. But everybody thinks that that's what they want, right? They want to rush to it without understanding,
without getting
why.
Right. Yeah.
I bet you this is why so many people are pissed off at AI.
Oh.
Well, because think about it. I mean,
the ultimate thief.
Well, kind of. But the thief isn't the problem. Because again, we all thieve the same way.
We did.
Well,
yeah.
You can't deny that.
That's true.
Anybody's pissed that AI, the argument is flawed. Oh, well, AI was trained on all these stolen images and info, without... Dude, how many times have you asked to borrow an image to create a mood board to present to a customer?
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or when you create that's not the part, because what AI in that sense has done is no different than the shit that we do, unfortunately. Okay.
Just far more efficient.
Yeah. I think the problem that nobody's really honed in on yet, except us right now, because we're solving all the problems of the world on this podcast, is I think that, the problem people have an issue with is that when AI creates something, okay, it doesn't know why it's creating.
Right.
It creates like the lazy designer.
Right.
It just replicates that look. It mashes it together and it just makes it look at, it doesn't do the why.
Nope.
It doesn't understand anything else.
Yep.
When we do it, okay, we have intent. And then we're like, listen, I'm choosing to try to do something that's a little bit more Swiss modern, a little bit more Bauhausy with a mix of this. And this is our reason why.
Right.
AI it doesn't understand that.
Nope.
It's not human. This is the benefit of being a human, of course. But it just spits it out just to make it look good, like a lazy designer. And I think that's the problem that people have with it, right? Because again, you can't fret it for how it got its data set. We get our data set in our mind the exact same freaking way.
Exactly.
It's just that little intricate part. That's a big difference, that intent part.
Yeah, we aren't born in vacuums.
We like it or not, we're not.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. You don't come out fully formed in this business,
right? It does. When we decide to create stuff, right? We look for substance. We have meaning. Where I guess when AI is creating something, it can create something that's pretty fucking kick-ass.
Yeah.
That a lot of people couldn't do, period, because they don't have the skill to do it. Right. But it does it. It's very shallow.
Yes.
It's very thin.
Right.
It doesn't have the why behind it. It doesn't have that soul, the intent. It's just like, you want something that looks like that? Yeah. Here you go. Something that looks like that.
Which is exactly why you look at it and go, oh.
Yeah.
But you think, I can kind of improve. I can improve on that.
Oh, many times.
I get what you're doing, and I can raise that up to the next level.
So often, and again, I obviously am a fan of AI, but I can't ever say that I've seen a piece of AI work that has moved me, that I have felt emotionally connected to. And again, it's missing that substance that, humans can put towards a project.
Yes.
Whereas
you can see a piece of art and just be like,
exactly,
take
right?
your breath away kind of thing. Yes.
Right. So, I guess if I was to compare the AI to designers, right? It's like, lazy designers will ask AI for the answer, where real designers ask AI to understand. Okay, so maybe and
so you understand
exactly, right? So I think that's the difference of translating what AI is doing versus what we're doing, comparing us to the lazy designer, right? Based on all this, I did plan a little bit because I've been thinking about this. So I've talked about this a couple times over the past couple of weeks. Is there's no question that designers need to be comfortable with the fact that we copy.
Yep.
Copy.
Yep.
We copy to be influenced. We copy to come up with our own creative ideas. Heck, we want to say, we steal.
Yeah.
Okay. We will, right? But there's a code of conduct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That, I kind of wanted to put out there, right? And I would say it's the designer's code of stealing. Okay. Because, this way it's like how to make sure that we are, imitating.
Yes.
Not being a lazy designer and trying to thieve.
You're not flat out stealing.
And it's only three things. Okay. So again, the law of creative theft. Okay. Number one. Okay. So this one, car analogy. Okay. You need to study the engine, not just the paint job. Okay. So a lazy designer, they just basically copy what they see. They see something shiny and cool and it looks great. That's what they do, right? But the real designer, they're looking at the engineering, how it was built. They're looking to get that influence and take that to the next level for their project, right? So we need to be able to look beyond just the color and the layouts of whatever it is that we're ingesting, we're influencing, we're trying to imitate, okay? We need to try to analyze why it works, why the designer who did it made the choices they did to get to that look, right? We maybe need to dig deeper and try to understand the problem that they tried to solve with this, okay? Not necessarily just, just spit it out on a piece of paper, but what were they trying to achieve by doing it this way, by laying it out? Was it the hierarchy? Was it the flow, the eye pattern, the traffic? What is it that you wanted to achieve by doing this? And then again, in the end, you should be able to say to yourself that if you stripped away, all the visuals, to that piece, would it still give the same energy of where you started?
Ooh.
Okay. So again, so number one, study the engine, not the paint job.
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, steal from many, not from one.
Oh, that's brilliant.
This is huge. Okay.
Right.
Because again, a lazy designer will just copy a single reference.
Right.
That's it. Right.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what? I like Aaron Draplin's shit.
I'm going to go with that.
I'm going to go with that. And they're going to study every one of Aaron Draplin's logos, his posters, his look. They're going to be a copy of Aaron Draplin. Yeah. There's no pride there.
Yeah. No.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're a real designer, what you want to do is you want to start building a library of influences. Take Aaron Draplin, then take Alan Peters, find
Saul
some
Bass.
people, right?
Go back in time.
Go back in time and find, people who have this similar, bold, thick lines.
Yes.
Figure out why Aaron Draplin does it his way.
Right.
Versus why Paul Rand did it his way and Massimo Vignelli did it his way. Okay. This is what you want to do, because then if you're pulling from an end, even go outside of the discipline, go to architecture, go to film, go to music, right? Get all the different influences. Maybe that won't help so much if you're trying to develop logo influences, but the idea is don't just go to one source for all of your influences, right? The more sources you have, then the more you can understand the bigger picture of what makes one different than the other.
Exactly.
That's where true mastery comes in, okay? That's how a true designer learns, and learns how to design pull from memory, create muscle memory, create that look and feel, right?
Yeah.
So again, if you have one look, okay, that's plagiarism.
Yep.
Plain and simple, okay? But 10 different looks that you're trying to mimic, right? You're now taking all this influence from there, and this is how you're creating your
very own style.
Exactly, right? Because you're adding your context to this. You're adding your own insight. You're matching it to your audience.
Yeah.
So this is how you create based on all these other pieces.
Ooh, that's gold.
And last but not least, number 3, transform, don't imitate. Okay. So a lazy designer just recreates.
Yep.
That's it. They copy.
Yep.
End result. Here you go, sir. We're real designers. We reinterpret what we see. Okay. Transformation is what happens. And I said it earlier on. Okay. When you take your influence, okay, you take that influence, put it towards your context, and then put all your own style that you've just gained, from all these other influences in place.
Yep.
That's how you will recreate something, right?
Yeah.
Base it on your audience, base it on the medium, the message you're trying to deliver. And this is how true creativity works.
Yeah.
This is how you create masterpieces, okay?
Yes.
Because again, the reality is originality is dead.
It's gone.
So
Forget
hard
it.
to see something that's never been done before. Okay. And I don't think it'll even happen. Every single thing, this has been done. This can obviously has been done. It's a fucking Nickelodeon can.
It totally is. Yeah. This is hippie shit from the 60s.
Totally that is.
Yeah, exactly. But
it doesn't make it any less cool.
It doesn't. And it is kind of in a sort of, it's somebody's stamp on, and somebody's version of whatever accumulation of their influences over the years. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I do think that this is something that we have to get comfortable with. Okay. And again, there's a fine line between, copying, and theft versus copying to understand.
Yes.
Okay. One is growth. One has got short-term gains. One's got long-term gains. Okay. One, is basically, is literally, plagiarism.
Yep.
Where the other one is learning how to understand how they got there and learning how to recreate, learning how to embrace what they were feeling and the methodologies and everything they got to that final product.
Yeah, you're almost getting into their skin just to kind of figure out what it is that
absolutely
the reasons behind what they're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really important because honestly, amateurs, they steal what they see
and stop.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Where, pros will steal what they understand. Okay. But real legends, masters of everything, level. They steal what they can transform into that. Nobody has ever said that Massimo Vignale was a thief.
No.
Paul Rand was a thief.
Nope.
Paula Scher, any of these people, right? Just, but they must recognize that they pulled their influences from people before.
Yeah. Exactly.
Cool.
Wow.
Well, I hope you guys got some cool shit out of this. Don't forget, we've got a kick-ass newsletter called Anger Management for Designers.
It's awesome.
Okay. It's a lot of this just in newsletter format. Yeah. And, there's a little bit of AI in there and there's a fun comic and some smart-ass and a challenge every week. But please check it out. You can go sign up in our social profile on our website or at angermanagementfordesigners.com.
Yes.
Other than that, people, you know where to find us. YouTube, Instagram, say hi on our website, get the conversations going. And other than that, my name is Massimo.
And my name is Sean.
Stay creative.
I stay angry.